Bryce, Gentleman of the Emerald City, Book 3. Written by Witt. Narrated by Michael Ferraiuolo. Chapter 1. Alec. After 8 long months on tour, there was nothing in the world I loved more than coming home to my own bed. Less than 15 minutes after I'd walked through the door last night, I had face-planted in my own familiar pillows and comforter, and I'd slept harder than I had in months. Now I was waking up as the sun poured in through the windows. That was what I'd needed, and I could enjoy it for the next however long I had before I was on the road again. My manager insisted again and again that the next tour was in the works, but she'd been vague as hell about much of anything aside from, "You all better get back in the studio and get recording as soon as you get home." They'd probably give us a week at most to recover, and then the pressure would be on. While we'd been on the road, we'd spent a solid portion of our downtime figuring out the next album. I was the type to write a shitload of songs, which we'd then pare down to the ones we wanted to include in the album, and by the time we'd headed home, we'd narrowed the field to about 20. Over the next week or so, we'd trim it to the requisite 12, plus a handful for the deluxe edition. Then we'd record, and if we knew what was good for us, we'd record fast. Because the powers that be had decided this album needed to be released on an accelerated timeline. Why, I didn't know. Probably because they were sadists, and not the fun kind. I sighed into the stillness of my bedroom. "Be a rock star," they said. "It'll be fun," they said. I wiped my hand over my unshaven face. I loved my job, I really did, and it was amazing to finally be at the level we'd all been dreaming about since we'd started annoying Zane's parents by practicing in their garage in high school. But goddamn, the politics and pressure could go to hell sometimes. At least we were starting to see some decent money. We'd quickly learned, mostly from the jaded veteran musicians we'd opened for in our early days, that getting a record deal was not the same as making bank. We'd been so broke by the time we'd released our 3rd album, we'd all been ready to pack it in and go back to playing in clubs for free beer. But then some singles off that album had done really well. Our shows had started selling out, and our merch had started flying off the shelves. None of us were exactly living like kings, but I had no complaints. Touring was draining, though, and the only thing I loved better than being on stage was returning home to my own bed. I'd been lucky this time around. There'd been a couple of brief breaks during the tour where I'd been home for a few days before heading back out on the road. The last visit home had been a good 3 months ago, though, and I was beyond grateful that the tour was over. I'd just try not to think about the fact that we'd be heading out on another one sooner than later. We should not have agreed to rehearse the new tracks as much as we had while we were on the road. It had strained my voice and everyone else's hands, and it had cut into our precious downtime. We'd made a ton of progress, but at what cost? And now that we were home, we had no excuse to drag our feet because we had our own recording studio, which meant we didn't have to record around anyone else's schedule. In the eyes of the people on high, that meant there was no earthly reason why we couldn't get this thing done in record time. Besides my voice, everyone else's hands, our drummer's back. Minor details, I know. And I just knew that an accelerated album meant they were going to shove us back out on tour as quickly as humanly possible, too, which, I liked touring. I loved it, but Jesus fucking Christ, let a man relax once in a while. I groaned and rubbed my eyes. I wouldn't think about that part right now. There was a lot of work to be done between now and when we hit the road again. But at least for the next week, none of us had to do anything except relax. And I knew exactly how I was going to spend at least part of the time. Now that I'd had some sleep, it was time for some coffee. And then I wanted to find some company for this evening.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?